Game of Thrones, a story of power, betrayal, and strategy. It's a world where families fight for the Iron Throne, alliances shift like sand, and those who understand power survive while others fall. In this brutal game, knowing when to strike and when to trust can mean the difference between life and death. But power isn't just about strength, it's about control. To truly hold power, you need to master the 4 W's: when, who, what, and where. When to act, who to focus on, what to prioritize, and where to establish dominance. Every great leader from history to fiction understands this. Think about it. It's not the strongest who always win. It's those who know how to use power strategically. In this video, we'll break down how the 4 W's work, not just in Game of Thrones, but in real life. From business empires to political arenas, understanding the timing, the focus, the players, and the space gives you the edge. If you know how to control the 4 W's, you don't just survive, you win. The first one, when. It's about timing, knowing when to strike, when to retreat, and when to stay silent. That's what separates those who survive from those who fall. Let's understand the power of when. Timing is everything. You can have the strength, the resources, and the influence, but if you move at the wrong time, you lose it all. In Game of Thrones, the characters who understand timing are the ones who survive. In real life, it's the same story. In business, politics, and even personal relationships, knowing when to act is the difference between success and failure. Let's start with one of the most shocking moments in the Game of Thrones, the Red Wedding. Robb Stark had the upper hand in the war. His army was strong and his victories on the battlefield were stacking up. But when he broke his marriage pact with the Freys, he unknowingly created the perfect timing for betrayal. Walder Frey didn't act immediately. He waited, he smiled and welcomed Robb, lulling him into a false sense of security. And then, when the timing was perfect, during the wedding feast, a moment when everyone was relaxed, unarmed and vulnerable, Frey struck. Robb was scared not because he was weak, but because he didn't understand the power of timing. So what I mean by this is, strength means nothing if your enemy knows the right moment to strike. Timing isn't just about war, it's about business too. Take Steve Jobs and the launch of the iPhone. In the early 20s, the market was flooded with basic flip phones and early smartphones like BlackBerry. Jobs could have released the iPhone earlier, but he didn't. He waited until the touchscreen technology was perfected, the App Store ecosystem was ready, and mobile internet was fast enough to support device full potential. When the timing was right, when the world was ready for a revolution, Jobs unveiled the iPhone. The result? A product that changed the tech industry forever. Just like Walder Frey, Jobs knew that even the best idea won't work unless the timing is right. Daenerys Targaryen's rise and fall are also a lesson in the power of timing. When Daenerys finally reached King's Landing, the city was weakened, the Lannister army was fractured, and the people were fearful. She had the chance to seize the throne without destruction, but she didn't choose the right time to attack. Instead of waiting for surrender or using diplomacy, she attacked out of rage and impatience. Timing matters. Acting too soon or too late can turn a victory into a disaster. Her failure wasn't in her strength, it was in her timing. The lesson? Even power backed by dragons and armies can crumble if you misread the moment. Let's shift to the financial world. And when it comes to financial world, the one of the greatest investors is a master of timing. Buffett doesn't just buy stocks when they look good. He waits for market downturns and then strikes. In 2008, when the financial markets collapsed, most investors were panicking and pulling out. Buffett, on the other hand, saw the timing as an opportunity. He invested billions in undervalued companies. When the market recovered, Buffett's strategic timing turned those investments into massive profit. Just like Daenerys, Buffett understands that timing determines whether you gain or lose power. The difference is that he knows when to act and when to hold back. The next one is who. It's about who you trust, who you align with, and who you place at your side. The right allies can raise you to greatness. The wrong ones, they'll pull you down faster than any sword. Power isn't built alone. It's built on alliances, loyalty, and strategy. Even the strongest ruler can fall if they surround themselves with the wrong people. Knowing who to trust, who to manipulate, and who to eliminate. That's the real game of power. In Game of Thrones, the most successful characters understand this truth deeply. In real life, leaders, CEOs, and politicians rise and fall not just because of their decision, but because of who they choose to rely on. Let's start with one of the most powerful figures in Westeros, Tyrion Lannister. Tyrion didn't rise to power because of brute strength. He rose because he knew who to back and who to control. He aligned his family with the crown by arranging Cersei's marriage to Robert Baratheon. He controlled the realm not by sitting on the throne himself, but by strategically placing his children and allies in key positions. Tywin's power wasn't direct, it was through others. He knew that the crown itself is vulnerable, but controlling the people around the crown is where true power lies. Even when Joffrey became king, Tywin pulled the strings from behind the scenes. The lesson? You don't need to be the face of power. You need to decide who holds it. In real world, the Koch brothers used the same strategy. They didn't run for office themselves, but they controlled political influence through strategic donations and alliances. By funding think tanks, political campaigns, and lobbying groups, they influenced policy without holding office. Like Tyrion Lannister, they knew that the true power isn't about being in the spotlight. It's about choosing who to put in power. Sometimes the king isn't the one who holds the power. It's the one who decides who becomes the king. Jon Snow's rise to power wasn't based on strength or strategy. It was based on loyalty. Jon didn't seek to become the king in the north. His men raised him up because of who he was. He earned the loyalty of the wildlings by fighting alongside them and treating them with respect, not as enemies but as equals. With Ramsay Bolton attacked Winterfell, Jon's army was outnumbered and overmatched, but he survived because of who stood beside him. Sansa's alliance with Littlefinger brought the Knights of the Vale to the battlefield at the critical moment, and that turned the tide of the battle. Jon's power came not from strategy, but from the right alliances and right loyalties. Let me give you a lesson. Strength alone doesn't win wars. The people standing beside you do. Elon Musk's success isn't just about innovation, it's about the team he's built. Musk didn't create Tesla and SpaceX alone. He brought in key engineers, investors, and strategists who shared his vision. When Tesla faced production issue, Musk's decision to bring in automotive experts from traditional car companies helped stabilize operations. He also maintained loyalty by creating a shared sense of mission. Working at Tesla and SpaceX wasn't just a job, it was about changing the world. Just like Jon Snow, Musk succeeded because of who he chose to surround himself with. Even the most brilliant leader can't succeed without the right team. The third one is what? It's about what you focus on. The most powerful characters knew how to direct attention toward the right objectives and away from their weaknesses. If you control what people see, think, and care about, you control the outcome. Even the most powerful figure can lose if they focus on the wrong goal. Directing focus determines where resources, attention, and influence go. In politics, business, and life, controlling what people focus on is a core strategy of power. In Game of Thrones, the most successful characters were those who mastered the art of redirection, keeping attention on their strengths while concealing their vulnerabilities. In real life, the most successful leaders and businesses thrive not because of strength alone, but because they control what the public, their competitors, and even their own team are focusing on. Power is about focus. If you control what people care about, you control what they fight for. Daenerys Targaryen built her rise to power not just with dragons, but with the illusion of liberation. When Daenerys freed the slaves of Astapor and Meereen, she directed the focus toward her as a liberator. But her true goal wasn't freedom, it was control. The unsullied and freed slaves became her loyal army. But they followed her not because of political strength, but because she controlled what they saw. Daenerys focused the narrative on justice and freedom, even when her actions were about securing personal dominance. When Tyrion advised her to show mercy in King's Landing, she shifted the focus to vengeance, framing her actions as necessary justice. The lesson? Power isn't about what you do, it's about how you frame it. Apple uses the same strategy in business. Apple doesn't just sell phones, they sell innovation and exclusivity. When Steve Jobs introduced the iPhone, he didn't focus on technical specs, he focused on how it would change your life. Apple directed focus toward the experience, not the product itself. Even today, when Apple raises prices or remove features like the headphone jacks, they control the narrative by focusing on innovation and design. By focusing on the emotional connections rather than the technical details, Apple shaped the consumer loyalty. People don't buy the product, they buy the story behind it. Robb Stark had the military strength to win the War of the Five Kings, but he focused on the wrong battle. Robb's primary goal should have been securing alliances, but instead, he focused on the personal honor. When he broke his marriage pact with the phrase to marry Talisa, he shifted the focus from military strategy to personal choice. This cost him the phrase loyalty, which directly led to the Red Wedding. His focus on love and honor made him vulnerable to betrayal. So what I want to say is, if you focus on personal goals over strategic ones, you lose control of the game. Nokia dominated the mobile market in the early 20s, but they lost because they focused on the wrong thing. While Apple and Samsung focused on smartphone innovation, Nokia focused on maintaining dominance in feature phones. Nokia believed their market position was secure, so they neglected software and user experience. By the time they shifted focus, Apple and Android had already taken control of the market. Nokia didn't fail because they lacked resources, they failed because they focused on the wrong priority. Power isn't lost because of weakness, it lost because of misplaced focus. Let's try to understand the power of where. Power is closely tied to geography, both physical and strategic. If you control the battlefield, you control the war. If you control the meeting room, you control the negotiation. In business, politics, and life, owning the space where decisions are made gives you leverage. In Game of Thrones, the most powerful families, the Starks, the Lannisters, and the Targaryens, didn't just have influence because of alliances or military strength. They controlled key locations Winterfell, King's Landing, and Dragonstone, giving them both strategic and psychological dominance. If you control where the game is played, you control how it ends. Tywin Lannister and King's Landing. Tywin Lannister's dominance wasn't just about his wealth, it was about his ability to control King's Landing. After the Battle of the Blackwater, Tywin marched into King's Landing as the new hand of the king, but his true power came from occupying the capital. King's Landing wasn't just politically important, it was the center of power in Westeros. By physically controlling the capital, Tywin controlled the crown, the treasury, and the perception of power. His arrival on horseback during Joffrey's court session was a calculated display of dominance, a signal that he was in charge, not the boy king. If you hold the capital, you hold the kingdom. Amazon's fulfillment network. Amazon's dominance in e-commerce isn't just about product variety, it's about logistics and location. Amazon controls the supply chain through a global network of fulfillment centers strategically positioned near major cities. This allows them to deliver products faster than competitors. By controlling the physical infrastructure, warehouses, delivery networks, and data centers, Amazon dictates how and when customers receive products. Competitors can't match Amazon's speed and efficiency because they don't control the same physical infrastructure. Power isn't just about what you sell, it's about where you deliver. The Stark family's power was tied to Winterfell, not just as a home, but as a strategic fortress. Winterfell guarded the north, controlling the key trade routes and defensive positions. When Theon Greyjoy seized Winterfell, the Stark legacy was weakened because power was tied to the land itself. Jon Snow's victory at the Battle of the Bastards wasn't just about reclaiming territory, it was about restoring the Stark name through control of Winterfell. Even after being named king in the north, Jon's legitimacy depended on holding Winterfell. If you lose your ground, you lose your crown. Wall Street is the center of global finance not just because of the institutions located there, but because of the physical concentration of financial activity. The New York Stock Exchange and headquarters of major financial firms are concentrated on Wall Street. The physical proximity of these institutions creates an information advantage. Decisions can be made faster because of direct communication. This concentration of financial power means that economic shifts on Wall Street have global consequences. Even with the rise of digital trading, Wall Street remains the psychological and strategic center of financial influence. Control the market, control the money. When Daenerys Targaryen arrived at Dragonstone, it wasn't just a symbolic return, it was a strategic power move. Dragonstone was the ancestral seat of House Targaryen, giving Daenerys legitimacy as a ruler. It was positioned at the mouth of the Blackwater Bay, a direct line to King's Landing. Dragonstone also provided a defensible position, allowing Daenerys to stage attacks without fear of being overrun. By holding Dragonstone, Daenerys could threaten King's Landing without overextending her forces. If you control the high ground, you control the fight. So I've already elaborated the 4Ws very deeply, but still if you want me to dig more deep in 4Ws, just let me know in the comment section. I'll upload video on each 4W. So yeah, thanks for watching.